Right, this is episode 4, and a really special episode. We kind of had plans to get a bit of a panel on and do some Q&A and have a bit of fun with it. I think we're going to end up doing that next because over the week I was sort of talking to a real cricketing legend, not just in Frome circles, but in county circles as well. We're very lucky to have COLIN DREDGE as our president, and if anyone out there listening right now has kind of met COLIN, which hopefully will be most of you, probably get an idea of how sort of modest and humble he is as a bloke, and it's very difficult to get him to talk about some of his days at Somerset. And luckily enough for us, in the name of raising a bit of money for the club and sort of helping the cause, managed to get him on the phone, and the stories that he told were so good that actually we sort of felt that it would be much better as a standalone podcast. So we're going to get to that very, very shortly. But before we do, I should probably just mention that my co-host is with me, Reggie. How are you today, mate?
Yeah, very well, Robin. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's been a good sort of week, hasn't it, since we recorded the last one?
Yeah.
You and I have been training pretty hard. The listeners out there won't be surprised to hear that you've been hitting the streets and planning the cobbles and pushing out some sprints. But yeah, mate, we've been training pretty hard, haven't we?
Yeah. Push me to the limit, Letty.
Talk us through the ending to your Back in the Middle for Minds campaign.
Oh, 600 off the rail, mate. 600 off the rail.
And you got there. So, I mean, it's a great effort. I've not seen too many videos or anything like that from anybody else. Hopefully, this will sort of inspire them to get stuck in. I don't think anybody's going to be having to do anywhere close to the 70 that you did. But since then we've been training a bit as well, haven't we?
Yeah, we've been going down the field and putting a few sprints in, haven't we, mate?
I should probably say it's all been done at least 2 meters apart. And after we start, there tends to be a lot more than 2 meters between me and Reggie anyway, because obviously I'm a lot quicker and fun. So obviously, we're going to get to the interview in a minute. How much have you spoken to COLIN about his Somerset achievement?
Not a lot, really. Like you said, he's such a modest bloke. He doesn't really like to talk about himself, does he? Really, he always sort of brings it back to the club and stuff like that. But
you tend to get a bit more out of Neil, don't you? Or or sort of Dave or Mark. Bless him, when he was around, he used to kind of give you a few more stories than COLIN does. But it's a brilliant conversation, and because obviously Reggie and I are absolute pros, as we've said before, in podcasting, I'll be able to just cut to it seamlessly in a minute. But before we do, let's talk about the fundraising total, Reggie, because I checked earlier today, £2,545.
Oh man, that's unreal, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I mean, when we started this, we thought, we sort of like if we can get 300 quid, it's 300 quid that I've had. Put it towards something good. And the sort of the facts are that actually the amount of money that we've raised, it's affecting real change now, like stuff that we wouldn't have been able to do, like taking care of the weeds on both grounds and making sure squares and everything are sorted. And we got a message through from the ECB yesterday, or maybe it was Monday, saying that, we could, under strict regulations, go back into nets, on a one-on-one basis. And all the hard work and donations that people have put in mean that actually, we'll be in a position to have a square middle wicket, prepared for stuff, rather than just, the nets that we have. And if we are in the artificial nets, we can clean and brush and get them all ready for action, which is, amazing stuff, really. I should just say on that topic, we will be sorting out this week. Hopefully by the time you guys listen to this on Saturday, we'll have some more information for you about how that's going to work in terms of using the nets and stuff. But I think, real sort of overview is going to be one-to-one based, and I think 45 minutes is sort of the max we're setting out. But hopefully we'll get some more information on that. But we kind of said before episode 3, I think it was, that we wanted to get to 1,500.
Oh, we've breezed past that, mate.
Past that, and I guess it's support for this, and it does take a lot of effort, doesn't it, for us?
Yeah.
Getting everything lined up, sorting out the storylines, if you like, the shows and all the editing.
The big hitting guests on and stuff like that. It's not easy, man. We've
got loads of ideas for stuff. If you keep supporting us, we'll keep bringing something to you. So please keep donating. If you have listened to every episode and you haven't, chucked a $5 or whatever you can spare in, it'd be appreciated more than you know. But should we get to this interview, Reggie? Because I expect the people don't want to listen.
Yeah, this interview is about her, and it's quality.
All right, so ladies and gents, we're gonna, through the magic of editing and podcast professionalism, if you like, here is the interview with myself and Colin Dredge. Okay, joining me now on the podcast is, without question, the finest player ever to pull on a Frome jersey. Very lucky that he is also our president. Played many years for Somerset, close to 200 first-class games, over 200 list A appearances, hundreds and hundreds of wickets, and I'm hoping he's going to give us some of his very best stories this evening. So joining me on the phone, of course, is Colin Dredge. How are you, Colin?
Very well, thank you, Robin. That introduction, I think, was more better for someone else, not me. It was I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, I think as we go through this interview, Colin, that will sort of hopefully be proved to be complete nonsense, because you don't rack up the stats that you racked up by accident, I'm sure. So as you can probably imagine, we have had a lot of reaction from the Twitter world to your coming onto the show. I asked everyone out there if they had some questions to ask, and the phone's not stopped ringing. So I hope you'll indulge us a little bit and share some stories.
Indeed, I shall try and help you as much as I can, because obviously during this period of lockdown, when everybody's very much frustrated by the situation, but fortunately, life goes on, and I'm hoping that we will all get through this and come out better people at the end of the day.
And those that are listening, Colin, probably think that these podcasts are seamlessly created without hitch or hiccup whatsoever. Roughly how long has it been since we started trying to set up this Skype call?
Well, it is now, I think it is 8:10, and I would say 40 an hour and 10 minutes. So you're talking at 80 minutes. So that's quite good for me.
That's not too bad.
Being a very technical person.
Well, I'm very pleased that we have managed to get you on, Colin. I suppose a little bit of background for our listeners, if maybe they don't know exactly sort of who you are and what your story is, which I can't imagine there's many people that listen to this. But how did you get into cricket, and how did you begin your career with Frome?
Well, I suppose I owe a lot of it. Obviously, everybody knows in Frome is a big Dredge family. I've got 7 brothers and 2 sisters, which I am the 4th eldest. Yeah. And obviously, my father played cricket on a Sunday, and every Sunday as I grew up, we would go where they play all their games away. They never had a home ground. So they were always playing away. So all of the Dredge clan, shall I say, would turn up with Dad, and we support him in that. And I suppose that's how I started to get my interest in cricket, and obviously went on from there. I then started to, as I got older, got involved with Frome Cricket Club. I think I used to clean the changing rooms out to start with as a young sort of 12-year-old looking to, get his way into the club. And then I used to do the scoring for the first team. And then on occasions, I played when they were one short. They always seemed to lack 11 players to go to a long place to go, even to go to Burnham-on-Sea from Frome was classed as a long journey. So people, well, half the time, they'd have the 11th person would be just there to go and field, really, not bowl or bat, but just to basically make the numbers up. So that's how I sort of started. And, and obviously, I think like every person starting out, you get a few beatings to start with, and then as time progresses, you turn them round and hopefully, you dish them out, So it is sort of come full circle in that term.
Do you remember your first full season in the first team at Frome?
I played, well, funny enough, my uncle, or my mum's brother was captain of the second 11 on a Sunday, and they were one short, and I sort of played for them, and I sort of then got introduced to Sunday cricket. Then it was not an overs game. It was you start at 2:30 and you bat till 5 o'clock, 5:10, and then you'd have like 20 minutes for tea, and then you start again at 5:30. Then you have an hour till 6:30, and then you do 20 overs from 6:30 to 7:30. So it's more of a time sort of game more than overs, and that's how I was introduced. And obviously, it's 13 or 14, I think, in 19. Well, a long time ago, should we say? It's in the 60s, should we say? The year after England won the World Cup, all right? And I started playing for Frome, and it sort of just carried on from then. My eldest brother, John, played first. He was obviously older than me. He played about at 14. Terry played it, who's my second youngest brother. Oldest brother, sorry. He played it at 14 as well. So we all played at a young age as the club had just sort of going through a transitional period where they'd had a lot of good players that played for the club. I think one of them was John Attio, who used to play football with Bristol City, and also played for England. Philip Fussell, who played one game for Somerset, I believe. They had a good Jack Pearce. I can ramble them all off. I think one year they went through the season unbeaten. And but it come to a stage where obviously they were all the same age, and they all grew old together. So then when they all left, it left a big hole in the Frome side. And I think Brian Stockhill was just sort of came in at that time with Ken Hobbs, who was another person in the club that had been there for years, who sort of was the backbone of the club. And then it sort of helped us sort of get better as young players. All right, we had a few beatings to start off with, but then we turned it round, and we got successful, and it just sort of snowballed from there.
Just whilst we're talking about Frome in that kind of era, I mean, well, nowadays, the sort of current crop, we hear kind of stories about the Frome side.
No, it's I mean, it's the same with errors in every club. You have transitional periods, and especially in Frome. I mean, we are a side that encourages all young local people. So most of the people that play or represent Frome Cricket Club are local people, which is nice, I think. And it's getting them to play for the club, and it's and being a nice big family, and it's all about knowing each other. Not only is it is good on the field, if you get it right off the field, you're going to get it right on the field, and I think that is shown in the last 2 or 3 years, with our present side, and you just can't go. Also, you can't go on and say, well, Frome had a good side, just like Somerset had a good side in the 70s, 80s, and compare them to, the days, today's, players or whatever, because everything has changed so much. The modern player is much fitter and more, more technical, and he does all the right things, and there is more things to make cricketers, as in sort of my day. It's easy to say that. I mean, I turned up for the ground, and we do a bit of fitness, and then I turned get a steak and kidney pie and a packet of crisps, and then see if we were batting or bowling. But I mean, you can't imagine the modern cricketer doing that.
Sounds like Reese would have thrived.
I think he would have loved it, yeah. But then there are good players, even though depending on their diets are so much different nowadays, and their dietitians that they've got and that, and it's a different ball game altogether. And to actually do what they do is 24/7. You're doing it for 12 months of the year, where I think they're contracted now 10, 11 months of the year, are they? And with me, it was only from April to September, only 6 months. But, it was so intense then that you were just glad to get sort of the other sort of 3-4 months or whatever off, because in those days, really, I suppose also is that you played cricket for 7 days. You started championship game on a Saturday, then you have a John Player League game on the Sunday, then you finish off the 3-day game, which was then the championship on the Monday, Tuesday, and then you start another 3-day championship game on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So your time off was very few and far between. And when you did get time off, with whoever's beneficiary it was, used to go and sort of support them for that day or whatever, where they had an event or a charity game for, testimonial. But it was certainly, good times in that, and I enjoyed it. And you just can't sort of compare times or whatever. It's so much different.
Well, we've had a lot of interest, as I said, from people that listen to this podcast, kind of wanting to kind of ask you some questions about
it. Indeed.
And there's that we'll get on to the Somerset stuff shortly.
Later on, yeah.
There's a lot to talk about there, but one question that has come up over and over and over again was about the Frome side that won the Cup in 1975, because obviously, when the first team managed to win it season just gone in 2019, it's kind of made very apparent to us in the build up to that game that it had been 44 years and hadn't got to a final. And the question that keeps coming up from people asking me is, what you remember about that 75 team and about that 75 Cup final, because there's very little information out there on the internet to kind of
there's I think when I actually if you go to Somerset Museum, they've got a museum in Somerset that sort of shows you the history of cricket and that, and Somerset and that, and I did go in my early years in the 70s, and I popped in and just have a look, and they actually had a photo of that side, the Frome side that won, down in the museum. But I don't know if it's there now, but it was just shows you, as much as the situation with last year and you winning the Frome Cricket Club winning the 2020. I mean, that was fantastic. Looking at the sides that you beat on on your journey towards the final. I mean, you couldn't have not had a harder sort of pathway to the final than anyone else. So it just shows you how well everybody played, and how they wanted it, and they fought as a team. It was, to me, that was a fantastic effort, and the way the club is going forward at the present moment is great.
And what do you remember? What do you remember about that '75 team then, if any? And you know, and particularly, you know, can you tell us a bit about the game itself?
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think because '74 we actually got to the final at Taunton, and we played actually Taunton. Who Roy Kerslake was a captain then, who was chairman of Somerset County Cricket Club, and we played them in the final. And basically, they had a lot of good players. Trying to think, Windsor and Merryweather, and there was a few of them. Anyway, they were all sort of minor county sides or minor county players at that time. And we were just sort of, from Frome, and we lost I think by about 30 runs in the end. But the following year it was we played Long Ashton, and trying to think of his first name. Stuart Broad's father was opening the batting end. He used to play for Gloucester. Chris it was, yeah. And Chris and trying to think, another opening batsman who used to score runs, and they were basically at that time, or when we played, you could play sides that had 2 or 3 good players, and they had 2 good players, but we were fortunate we got them. I think we got them out early or whatever, and they rattled up. I think it was 80, 90 runs. It was under 100 anyway, and we chased it down and won it with 3 or 4 overs to spare. So it was quite an easy final in that respect. But we played well enough to make it an easy final, and it seems ages. I mean, the ground as we went to Taunton then has changed so much, in every way. When you sort of talking of 1975. What's that? 45 years ago. I mean, crikey! Yeah, I'm an old man now.
I mean, it's brilliant to hear, some of those recollections. Yeah, I think to us, we're very. I think the current side. I think we're very aware of kind of our place in history, just as your team had your place in history, and we would love to, hopefully we'll have plenty more successes in the next.
I can see that you will. You'll be very successful because you want it and you're hungry. I think it's like going to a sweet shop. You go to finals or whatever, and you go to a sweet shop and you look at all the sweets in front of you and you think, God, which one shall I have? You have that one, you taste it and you think that's yummy. And then you go away and you think, well, I've got to have another one. So it's like going to a final, where, you taste it once, you've got to do it again, So,
yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we've sort of got that in front of us. But this interview, Colin, is about you, and I've got a lot of questions to get to. So
I'm trying to turn it round.
Yeah, I know, I've noticed, because, well, I mean, I suppose anyone that does know you, reasonably well, knows that you are a very modest chap, and you're probably a little bit out of your comfort zone. But everyone has an enormous amount of respect for you and what you achieved, and I think it's just a reflection of that respect that they kind of want to know, all about what you achieved. So, shortly after that final in 1975, you make your Somerset debut, and I've got a question come in. This one is from Andy Veal, actually, and he wants to know how you were feeling when you walked in the Somerset changing room for your debut.
Well, it's just, I think to me it was like playing for, like, when I expect a lot of people will sort of feel the same as you walk into a dressing room maybe, and you've heard of people and their names and that, and they're just like me and you, and you just sort of like go in and you sort of sit in the corner, you're quiet, and then someone sort of makes conversation, and but I was a little bit nervous, yeah, but once I suppose when you're young, or I suppose about 21, 22, and I just take everything in my stride. When you're younger, you just go with the flow, you live in your own little bubble, and it was brilliant really, and I was lucky to have a reasonable debut, and that sort of helped my confidence and think, well, hang on, when you jump from club cricket straight into to county cricket, it is a big step, and it's more of a big step now, but in those days, I mean, batters were sort of like they were always there, bowlers were two to a penny, in respect of, I think from Somerset had a lot of injuries. Boff was away playing Test match, Closey was there, and they're obviously playing the West Indies, and I think Hallam was injured, and they had someone else was injured, so it was myself and another lad, and unfortunately I got the nod from Derek Taylor, who was captain that day in place of Closey because he was on test duty, and so I think it was said that they gave me the opportunity, and I just sort of approached it. And I suppose when you go out on the field and you play for the first time against people that you read about in the paper, I don't look at that. I just think, well, they're just like me and you. They're one-on-one. They're only as good as I bow to them, or they're only as good as I make them. But every dog has its day. And that is how it is. So you got to believe in yourself. And I think being young as well, I just it didn't blow me away or anything. I thought, well, I like this, I want it. And I was just happy to be a part of it.
You mentioned Ian Botham
Yeah.
there. Did you know him? And Brian Close. Did you know them before you made your debut?
I knew. I didn't know Closey, but I mean, I met Closey, and he was one that he said, "Right, lads, we're going to run through this wall," and he'd be the first one to run through the wall, and he expect the other 10 to follow him. Which I got a lot of respect for, because you don't ask people to do something you can't do yourself. With Boff, I had played with Boff I played under 15s at Caution, my first game with him and for Somerset Schools. Believe it or not, then I was opening the batting for Somerset, for the under 15s. I didn't get many. I think Boff got 80 odd that day. Anyway, cut a long story short, we played a few times, and then I think I played in under Roy Kerslake, kept writing letters to me to come and play under 25s or second 11 cricket for Somerset. And anyway, I said yes, and my first game was up at Lansdowne Cricket Club, and we were playing against Glamorgan. And of course, this was the year that Vivian Richards was qualifying for Somerset. So we had quite a good side then. The under 25s was Terry, my brother, and me, and also Philip Slocum, Vic Marks. There was also Boff, and of course Viv. So we had quite a good side, and we beat them. We all done really well. And just to show you how many people sort of come through the youth system there, there was, I think, 5 of them out of the 11. So it just shows you how successful and how well run it was.
What was Viv like?
Oh, Viv I've got a lot of time. He's a very nice person. He gives 100%, and he loves and he hates losing. He's a winner, and and he can get a bit frustrating in respect of him being such a quality player that he thinks everybody else should be his level. But I mean, you make mistakes in the field. I don't know, drop a catch or miss a field. You don't mean to, but he sort of he has that winning in him. So but nice person as well. Very humble and very respectful to everybody and everything. So I'm very, very happy and very proud to have played with such quality and a nice person.
I would imagine that the net sessions down at Taunton in that time would have been challenging.
It was always funny because the net sessions, I mean, it never involved Joe or Ian because obviously they didn't come back till maybe the first game of the season because they were winter touring or whatever. And Boff would occasionally come back. And of course, it's different. You sort of bowl in those days. We used to go back to pre-season. We used to go to Wellington Sports Centre in Wellington, and we used to, be there for a week, and we'd do various swimming and exercises. Go out on runs. We run up to the monument, which is about 8 miles away, up there and back. And of course, what you got to realise as well that you got people like Derek Taylor then who was not so young as me or was fit, so you've got a different age as much as when Closey sort of come back. I mean, he wouldn't do much fitness. He'd just run round the field 5 or 6 times or until he wanted his cup of tea and a fag, but it was good. I really enjoyed it. And then we go back to Taunton the following weekend and we'd have nets, and depending on the weather, we start indoor, and then if the weather was good, we get out on a little green top, early on in April, and it would just seam all over the shop, and of course, then Boff used to come in and he used to just smack it and end up in the River Tone or whatever, and of course, Pete Robinson was the coach then. He used to go, Boff, you've done it bloody again. And he's giving you brand new ball and it ends up in the River Tone. He said, oh, there's another 20 quid down the drain. So he'd run off and he'd have like a long, the old fashioned keep nets that you got. And he'd try to fish it out of the Tone. But, I mean, once they got in water, they just went out of shape and that. Yeah. But it was, but then you get people out, and if you're out, you want out, you could get slogged or whatever. So, then we started playing games in the middle and, the bowler's bow and the batter's bat and play it as a game. So if you're out, you're out. If you're LBW or whatever, you were, I remember one season that Crowe come, Martin Crowe, he played for us for a couple of years and he came back. And obviously he'd been out in Australia in, big, fast track wickets and then playing a lot off the back foot hook and pulling, cutting in that. And of course, then you come over to England and then it's, the old green top, very slow and low. And of course, he was getting LBW a lot pushing forward, even to sort of second team bowlers where he was used to playing on the back foot, on hard, different conditions altogether. But it was, I really enjoyed myself and we were all about Slocum, Roebuck, Marks, we were all about the same age. We all sort of come through the same time. So, there was a batch of us and Trevor Gard as well and Keith Jennings. And of course, then you got Dennis Breakwell as well, so we had a lot of good players around. And then you've got your big players like your Viv, Joe and your Ian, which can win you games on your own. But it's just like sitting down to a table and you look around your table and you think, well, what can I bring to this table? Well, I can bring a little of this, and and collectively, it's all as a unit, and I think that's why we were successful. It was successful because we all brought something to the table. And even when say the big three didn't fire or whatever, then we had good players to really to come in and do their bit. That that pulled us out the mire, sort of time and time again. So it is a team game, but like everything else, you're going to get your good players and you get your average players like me. So there you go.
I would say, Colin, that to take 443 first-class wickets and 37 fifers probably puts you just a tick above the average that you.
Yeah, but my answer is that all right, I got some wickets, and there's times I bowled well, and I've not got wickets. I think I remember one occasion we were playing who were Warwickshire at Taunton, and it was a green top. We didn't have I said we'll have an extra slip, and I think I bowled about 30 overs, 1 for 80. And then Boff come on, and he bowled the biggest load of crap, and he had 5 for 20 off of about 10 overs. He bowled, but it was just his way that he could sort of frighten people, and his sort of way he put his, himself onto people. It just shows you as much as Viv, the way that Viv walks to the crease and he swaggers in that, and everybody looks at him. You see the 11 players on the field thinking, oh, here comes Viv Richards. How are we going to get him out? Or, and he's got that personality, and he's got that puts fear into everybody. So it is as long as, he's a great player, fantastic player. But, psychologically as well, it's all about that a mind game as well,
When did this nickname, the Demon of Frome,
I was waiting for that. No, it was I first got it. I've got a knack. I don't know whether it's a good knack, or I think they feel sorry for either getting the good players out. And Alan Gibson, who wrote for the Telegraph, for the Times, and he nicknamed me the Demon of Frome because he always used to nip it back, and so that's how I got my name. But then I come back to Frome or whatever, and at the time I had 3 young children under 5, and I don't think they were calling me the Demon of Frome. It's more like the Seaman of Frome. But anyway, that's by the way. Anyway,
well, we'll sort of swiftly segue away from that one, Colin. Sam Croker sent a question. Forgive, by the way, those of you listening to this, forgive me if I haven't mentioned all the question askers by name. I've got so many to ask. I'm just kind of rattling them off one by one. But Sam did want to know who you think was the best player you ever got out.
Oh, I think you don't notice it. Obviously, I got my first county wicket was Glenn Turner. I realised how good a player he was because in the second innings he got 100. Yeah. And the best player, I don't. I've got Roland Canai out, who I thought was a good player. The other one that I played my second championship game down at Hampshire at Southampton, and the first 2 coming out to face me was Gordon Greenwich and Barry Richards, B.A. Richards. Yeah. And I got Richards out, and I would say he's the best player I bowled against, although I would say Viv's the best one I bowled against, because I have bowled against Viv a couple of times and disappeared or whatever, like everybody else. But yeah, I would say Barry Richards. Yeah, he was. Sorry, yeah, he was
batter.
Yeah, that's right. It was South African, and unfortunately at that time it was apartheid, and they had some good players. I think Barlow was playing at the time for Derbyshire. So it was unfortunate that they weren't playing international cricket.
Do you remember how you got him out?
Yes, I bowled one that just nipped back, and it bowled him off his pads. I think it nipped back so much it missed the wickets, but it bowled him off his pads. So I was more surprised than him when he was walking back. But there you go. But then, when you bow the other end to Garner and Botham, I mean, Vic Marks was a good bowler as well. People sort of, one day cricket championship cricket or whatever, they tend to think, well, who are we going to go after? We're going to go after Garner? No. We're going to go after Botham? No. We're going to go after Marks and Dredge? Maybe. Yes, I think so. So, it is, if you bow in tandem with good bowlers, then, they're looking to play a few more shots against you, aren't they? So that certainly helped my career.
And around that sort of time, obviously you had, you mentioned Joel Garner there, which lots of questions have come up about him. And I mean, I suppose if you'll indulge us, just kind of tell us a little bit about what he was like as a bowler and as a person.
Oh, fantastic person. I mean, I'll tell you how nice a person he is. He's me and Joe get on quite well, being bowlers or whatever, and I think when we first won the what was it, Gillette Cup, I missed that final because I'd been out all year with a groin strain, and I came back about 2 weeks prior to the final, so they kept the same side, which I could understand, but of all the so I was I was at home and I was going down the physios twice a day, and Joe was the only one that came up and visited me, and sort of seen how I was, and came to my house in Taunton, and and what a good chat, and that just shows you the type of person that he is. He's so modest, and I mean, since then, I mean, I've seen him last year, I think. Went to the Somerset players dinner they have every year, and he was there, and we had a good chat. Things have never changed. Got a lot of respect for him, and he'd always, I think I think I used to bowl all the time, and of course I used to bowl even when I had a few injuries, which was wrong really, because it was it was me or Vic, because Vic used to spin one end or me at the other, and so then Joe would often sort of step in and say, "Hang on, Dredge's bowling my overs," He say, "No, I'm ready to bowl again." You know what I mean? And he learnt me a lot as well. He I also learnt a lot from Derek Taylor, was wicketkeeper, and sort of have a good chat to him because he's behind the stumps, and he would sort of tell me, say, "How does it look today? How's my arms, and and the seam, and everything." And we'd have a good sort of chat, and sort of talk about batsmen and that. So it was a learning curve all the way through, from start to finish. And it was obviously trying to pass on that knowledge that I'd learned from others to the younger generation that were coming up. So it is a learning curve till we die, whatever we do. So it was brilliant. I had a lot of time and a lot of respect for him. And I mean, his record in one day cricket, I mean, he's won us sort of games that that he just sort of wipes the tell away. Sort of 8, 9, 10 are gone. And you've got people like that if you've got a good, quick, sensible bowler that, I mean, it's 6'8" or whatever it was, over the top of the side skin, you got that bounce. I mean, I just seen people come in, and even on a flat wicket in Bath or whatever, and he's bowled them out for nothing, because you don't, immediately with Joe, you don't go on the front foot, you go on the back foot because of his height. And of course, he pitches up a bit more, and he's got you dead. So of all the three, they're all nice people, and a big friends of mine over the years, and that, and still got a lot of respect for them in that. So it says enough in itself.
You mentioned the final in 1979, which you didn't play.
No, that's correct, yeah.
Which was, if I'm right in saying, Somerset's first major trophy. But
that's right, against Northants at Lords. That's right.
You did play the following
the Sunday, yeah. Which was, I think, what happened the previous year. We played. We had the same circumstances that arose, where we played on the Saturday. We played Sussex in the Gillette Cup at Lords, and then trying to think, we lost to, who was it, Essex, I think, at Taunton. So we could have won the Gillette Cup and the John Player League, 2 trophies in the same, within 2 days. And the following year, it was the same situation where we played Northants in the final at Lords, which we won. And then we didn't expect, well, we then had to go to Trent Bridge, and we played Notts. And Keith Jennings had a niggle at the time, so he didn't play on the Sunday. But and I played in place of him and got a few wickets, and we won. And then a few of the other sides that expected to win lost, and we actually won the first time we won the John Player League. I think I got about 4 or 5 runners-up John Player League medals, but only one winners John Player. So that was quite a feat. So sort of just shows you from one year to, you know, I mean, after we lost the in 78, lost those 2 games. I mean, the heads went down in that, and then it reappeared the following year, and we just turned it around. So, you know, sometimes you've got to go there and experience things and the pressure before you actually, you know how you're going to deal with it, and you know, and hopefully come out the other end the winners. You know, learn from your mistakes. So yeah.
In 2 days. Was there no kind of sore heads on the Sunday?
I'm trying. No, well, what happened was because we won on the Saturday against Northampton at Lords, obviously. So then we were obviously, I don't know, they finished about 6, 7 o'clock. So then we're going up to Nottingham, up to Trent Bridge, and get up there for the John Player League that started at 2 o'clock. So there wasn't any sort of celebrations on the Saturday night. And on the Sunday, I think there was of course, we were then at Northampton. But then, I mean, in those days, we sort of travelled individually, you know, in our own cars, or, you know, a couple of players in a car. So we didn't go as a coach. So we didn't really sort of, we had a glass of champagne after, but we didn't really, you know, obviously we had to still then drive back to Somerset. And then I think then we had, I think a week later, we had a good tour of Taunton in an open bus. So then we had a good time, you know.
So a lot of people sort of on the streets.
Yeah, you went round, and it was you know, chock-a-blocko. So, you know, it was brilliant, because I mean the support in that time, even the previous year. I mean, the previous year that I can remember, and it was a very emotional time, because the previous year that we lost those 2 games, on the Sunday we played, like I said, Essex at home, and lost by a couple of runs, I think it was. And we all come in, the heads were down, and you just, you know, and we went up into the box, and you just look across the ground, and all as you could see were people, and they were just chanting your names and chanting Somerset, even though you'd lost 2 games in 2 days. And it was nice to reverse it, and then just to come back the following year and see all the smiles on the faces, and know that we'd won 2 trophies in 2 days in the history of the club. So, you know, it just shows you that, you know, records are there to beat, or, you know, or to break. So fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Sounds like a, you know, pretty special time.
Yeah, it was emotional. It was, you know, when you look out across Lords or whatever, and you just see a load of people stood. My wife's just come back. She's just giggling her head off. No, and yeah, so, you know, you look across Lords, and you just see people and flags and everything, and all you want to do is get your medal and sort of chuck it at them and say, look, keep it, you know, this is for you, not for me. You know, I represent you lot, and, you know, you're the ones that help us get there, you know, which is, they're the ones that pay the money to come in and pay our living, you know, and it's as simple as that, isn't it? You know, so it's nice to have success, but it's not always about us. You know, it's about the people that follow you in that.
How often do you find yourself thinking back to those kind of moments?
I don't. My boys generally remind me. Mark, my middle son, unfortunately is not with us. He used to take the mick out of me, and he would remind me. I think he had a Somerset shirt made with how many wickets I took for Somerset in all, for my grandson who used to wear it. And, you know, he'd always come in, sort of say, I think they'd done an interview going back a while of me Joe Garner, and it was while I was injured, and I was still playing, and I should have been playing. And Joe come up and said, right, he said, Dredge can't bowl, he's bowled all day. And Joe would say, so Dredge, he said, bowled all day. He says he's bowling my overs, and and then the commentator said to Joe, said, what happened next? He said, I bowled. He said, we won the match. I thought if I'd have bowled, we'd have lost it. But I don't know. Yeah, there are memories, but memories are memories. You know, to me, it's about Frome Cricket Club and Somerset now. You know, it's not about what I've done. I want to see everybody come and do better than what we've done or whatever. I've got no animosity, you know, or anything like that. You know, I just want to encourage people or find the next person from Frome to come and play for Somerset. You know, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, if there's good players in the club and they want to get better and go a higher standard, I've got no problem with that. At least, you know, we're giving them the opportunity, which, you know, I like to see people have, which they certainly got it with all the coaches and people around now, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we hope so. And we've definitely got some good young players coming through in the sort of rejuvenated youth, and hopefully will bear fruit, you know, years going forward. And just before we sort of touch back on Frome, I just wanted to kind of ask one more question. Actually, this one's on behalf of our current vice chairman, Richard. He was very interested to know if you ever went to any of Ian Botham's famous parties, and what sort of things used to go on.
Hang on. My wife's in the doorway. I better just be a bit quiet here. No, but no, it's boff. You know, you go to, obviously in those days you travel around. You go from hotel to hotel, and as soon as you get, you know, go to the hotel, you check in and go to the room and settle in, come back down the bar and have a drink. But I mean, boff, and he was always, you'd have a drink with him, and I sort of say, I'm just going off to the toilet, and I disappear to bed. And then, you know, a couple of times he'd come up and try and knock me up at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever, you know, and you know, right, I had a few drinks now and then, but what I'm trying to say is that I know what I could do, and, you know, and what I couldn't do. And I think the only story I can tell you, I think, is, as I look at my wife now, is that we went to Barbados on a pre-season tour, and I think it was only most of the cat players didn't want to go or whatever, because, you know, we'd gone all the way to Barbados to play Gloucester. Why couldn't we play them, you know? But it was more or less getting the conditions and that, and we sort of, Boff said, it was me, Gardy, and Boff, and we sort of had a flat that, well, not like it was accommodation on the hotel, so he decided to invite everybody around, and so invited everybody around, and he got some, of course, rum and all those sort of drinks in, and anyway, I managed to be the person that dishes out the drinks, but next morning I looked at the bin in the outside, and it was full of bottles, you know, gin or whiskey, or, you know, and also the funny part was also that Gloucester were with us training, and they used to go out early in the morning because it was hot in those conditions, and they'd come back about, I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock, just as it was getting warmed up. And I think they came back one day, and they'd all been out running, and of course there's Somerset lads around the table, and all you could see on the table was bottles of Budweiser, and they'd been out training, and, you know, and we were getting slowly sloshed, you know. It makes it, you know, but that just sort of says enough about how we played our cricket, you know. We, you know, enjoyed it or whatever.
Did you beat as well?
Sorry.
Did you beat them as well?
It was always we didn't beat them out there. No, we didn't have much of a side. I think there's only Boff, myself, and Gardy were the cat players. The rest were the more of the younger generation, second team players. But it was good experience for them all, But
so it had nothing to do with the late night.
Well, I think it could have been a bad example for the youngsters, shall we say, for the younger generation, which when they see cat players or whatever, but then that is how it is. But we the problem then was that some people seemed bigger than the club, shall I say, and the people that went out with us, was in charge, was not strong enough to sort of say anything or whatever. So and I think a few of us went under duress, not really wanting to be there, but which sounds very, sounds bad, doesn't it?
I think it's just, I guess it was probably, a sign of the times, really, wasn't it? I mean, when I started sort of playing second team cricket to when I finished, it was only a period of about 5 years, but the difference in
that's quite a long time, 5 years, Robin.
The difference in professionalism, was just chalk and cheese. I mean, I suppose Somerset weren't a very good side at the time.
I suppose, yeah.
But and that sort of changed with different players coming in,
it was a transitional period where when I joined the club, or sort of in the, shall we say, the early 70s, right up, they were a bit of a joke, where they had a few good players, but they were always being well beaten, and then sort of turned it round a bit, and then obviously more professionalism come in as the game, and obviously, like yourself, as time has gone on, the actual commitment for players and what they need to be successful is quite life changing. So it depends on how successful you want to be, and how much talent you got. It's like anything else. If you want to work hard to get anything, you can get it. If you believe it, you can do it. And I know that sounds the old fashioned, but 80-90% of the time that is true.
Well, listen, Colin, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. But we've got time for one more question. Actually, this one's from me, and
yes, indeed.
I've got two young girls, and whatever they develop as their interests will be their choice.
Well supported, yeah.
If they choose to play sports, then I'll be as proud as the next dad. But after all those years of putting on a Somerset shirt and achieving what you achieved, what was it like to see your son on the ground that you spent so many hours achieving what he achieved last summer?
Oh, it brought back a lot of emotional times in that, and I'm disappointed that I think David could play more. My eldest one, but didn't quite get the breaks. But I mean, that's life though. But I think Neil sort of is always like to hit the ball far as he can, and he's been a reasonably good bowler over the years, and I think he put in a reasonable performance. And I think it's like anything else, when you've been brought up and the boys have lived sort of, their dad plays or whatever, then it's not, the expectation on them is very high. And, I don't wish to put it on them. All I want to do is, like you said with your two girls, I don't mind what they do as long as they enjoy it. And I'll support them in whatever they do, just because I play cricket, or it doesn't mean they've got to. But it did. He made me very proud. And I think what even made me more moving was the medal that he won. He actually gave to me because I given my medals away to my three boys over the years so that they can pass them on to their grandchildren. And so, it just shows you how much that meant to him, and it also meant a lot to me. It made me quite emotional to think that, he's back there, and that's another dredge down there. But, but the main thing is that, it's Mount Frome Cricket Club. And I think it made one or two people, sit up and take notice, that we're, a team to be reckoned with now, and things aren't going to get any easier. But it means then that we're prepared to fight and do whatever it needs to win the game, with it, obviously within the rules. But knowing that when they come to Frome, or when they expect Frome at their place, they're in for a good game. And also, I'm proud as president also of Frome Cricket Club, and also taking over from my uncle Graham, who is Graham Barnes, was the previous president. So there's a bit of history there from him, as well as me and the rest of the family. So, we're all there, even though most of it don't play, but we're all there to help each other and support the youngsters of today, and still push the club forward in the right direction.
Long may that continue.
Indeed. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colin. I'm sure that our listeners would have got a great kick out of some of those stories, and we're very, very lucky to have.
Well, I don't know, lucky. I'm just like you and anyone else, so that's I don't dwell on the past. I worry about the future, for my children and my grandchildren. And that's all that matters to me. So,
listeners, if they dwell on the past just for 55 minutes at least.
Well, yeah, I think we were longer setting up than actually doing the interview.
Oh, brilliant! Well, listen, Colin, thank you so much for your time, and we will be seeing you around the club. Thank you. Colin.
Indeed, you will be. Thank you very much, Robin.
Well, that was, amazing interview. I mean, some of the stories he has to tell, Reese, it just blows you away a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable, man. Just sit there, smiling away, taking it all in, just trying to imagine what it was like to be in the changing rooms with people like Botham and Richards. Must have been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of kind of big names that sort of reeled off there, and the way he did it as well. It's kind of,
yeah.
I think that was sort of me. If someone was kind of asking me about my time at Somerset, because I was very much on the outskirts of it, I would never refer to anyone by a nickname.
Yeah.
It would just be ridiculous because but like sort of familiarity, if you like, and the fact he shared, which reels off like Garney and Both and Crowe and mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, man.
I think for me as well, you sort of perceive Colin as being this sort of really kind of humble guy, don't you, around the club?
Yeah. Amazing stories though, wasn't it? And he always just tried bringing it back to the club, and he just didn't want to talk about himself. But it was unbelievable listening to some of the stories.
I guess that's kind of, that's the sort of bloke that I kind of see when he's down at the club, because he doesn't, and you can tell he was uncomfortable, being the centre of attention a little bit there. But it was, so great of him to give us so much stuff to go on. I think for me, listening to that, obviously, we've played in 2 Taunton finals in front of nobody really, a handful of our own supporters, but. I think the thing that really sort of got me, when he was talking about the open top bus trip around Taunton. Yeah. You just sort of picture streets lined with cricket fans. I guess that would never happen today, probably in the county circuit. But Lord's finals in front of packed houses, and when you watch when you watch Lord's finals now on Sky, you know, name any two counties, probably including Middlesex. You know, there's a home game. It's never full, is it?
No, it's never full. No, but you can imagine it packed to the rafters, can you? Like,
I went to the Somerset. Somerset made the one-day final, I think, in '99, 2001, and 2002. And he made it like 3 and 4 years. And I went with my dad to all 3 of those finals. You know, when I was a kid, and there was a packed house every time. And obviously, like back in those days, the 70s and 80s, people used to sit on the grass, you know, around the outfield, you know, because they couldn't get a seat or a ticket. I mean, it was always rammed. And that sort of our president, you know, who has spent the last sort of 8 weeks painting the clubhouse. I mean, that's another thing I think people really don't realize is it's hard to kind of think of this guy who's out in the middle, you know, bowling in front of thousands and thousands of people, some of the world's best players, is, you know, very quietly going about his business, painting our clubhouse for nothing, whilst, you know, we're all kind of in this sort of crisis. I think, I mean, I don't know about you, Reg. I think we're just incredibly lucky to have him, aren't we?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Brings so much behind the scenes that people don't see, doesn't he? Like, it's unbelievable, man.
Do you, do you think that, you know, where he was talking about at the end, you know, the club going forward, and, you know, obviously recapturing a bit of the glory days as we did last summer. I mean, do you think in Europe, you know, do you think we can sort of find that kind of magic touch again next year?
I don't see why not, mate. I think we're going in the right direction, aren't we? I mean, you're a coach. You'd probably agree that I think we're just maybe a couple of seasons away from maybe getting back to the top. I'm not sure what you think about it, and maybe 1 or 2 signings can help that. But
is that another teaser? Is that another little teaser for the?
Yeah, we don't want to reveal it yet, though, do we?
Should we leave it another week? I don't want to overshadow the COLIN DREDGE interview with the big reveal. Maybe we'll leave it 1 more week.
Yeah, we'll leave it another week.
Speaking of next week, we've got. Who have we got? We've got Ricky Potter, James Unwin coming on, which should be interesting.
That could be loose.
We've recorded about a 6-minute intro, and now we've been going for about 6 minutes after Colin's interview, and you haven't sworn yet, which is great. We might make it all the way through an episode clean, but I'm not so sure we're gonna. We might have to put a parental advisory on the episode next week.
That's not going to be good.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, I suppose it's up to what the listeners make it, really, isn't it? Because next week's episode is going to be mostly Q&A. Reggie's going to have you're going to have a little something for us.
Got my little section, mate. I've got it all planned out. Should be good.
Good. Well, we'll look forward to that. And so if you are out there listening right now and you can think of something you've always wanted to ask Ricky or Jimmer or myself or Reggie, then you can DM us at Frome CC Podcast, and we'll make sure we get those questions out in time. And as I said, you know, this is something that we've done, you know, for a bit of fun. But what's ended up happening is that the people out there listening have shown so much support that it's made a massive difference to the club, a huge difference. And, you know, it's kind of different, you know, for different sports clubs. But for us, you know, we have, yeah, more or less no income really, bar the odd night from September to March. And, you know, that doesn't really matter because you can set it all off because the summer is where you make your money. And we haven't been able to do that. And it's looking like it's going to be August before we play any cricket. And so the contributions you've made goes a long, long way. And so should we set a target, Reggie? Set a target? Should we say?
Shall we?
I think we should. Oh, yeah, I think we shall. Should we go with 3? Think we can make 3?
Yeah, I reckon.
Okay.
People are loving it, aren't they?
I think they're going to be so excited to hear from Jimmer, in particular. They'll be putting their hands in their pockets.
I think
so.
Jimmer should be paying us to come on.
Well, I mean, he's been in every poll so far and got nowhere near it. I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's started creating fake accounts and vote for himself. But nevertheless, it's not up to us to question what the people want, is it, Reg?
No, we just go with what we're put with, mate. we'll make the most of a bad situation.
So this episode is airing. Well, as you're listening to it, it was Saturday the 30th. No, 23rd. What am I on about? Saturday the 23rd. That's the day that you're listening to this right now. Which means that the episode following that, which will be on the 30th of May, we're gonna put that one in the books and stick it up as soon as we hit 3K. So, get donating. Reggie, have a superb week, my friend. Are we going to keep up this little fitness thing, or is it?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Burgess Hill sprints that you teased me with the other day, man. I'm looking forward to that.
You are looking forward to it, are you?
Yeah.
Well, I've got to be careful because if we keep training, then you're going to get fitter than me, and things are going to start to get tricky. So,
I've already trained today, and you haven't trained. So.
Depends what you mean by train, mate. I went for a walk, didn't I?
Well, you haven't burnt many calories there, mate. And then you ate a double burger, so.
That's some on, to be fair. Oh, lovely burger it was as well. Pork and apple, very nice. So you and I are going to take on Burgess Hill either tomorrow or Friday, depending on my very busy schedule. And we'll be back next week with Jimmer and Potts. But for now, have a great weekend, everyone, and we will catch you next week.